Before I get started with today's video, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to everybody who has supported me on Patreon, both in the present and in the past. It really means a lot to me, and you all are amazing. Hey guys, welcome back, or welcome for the first time if you're new. In today's video, I am going to be creating the cover for the junk journal signatures that I created in a semi-recent video, and this journal is a nature junk journal. Now, in that previous video, I showed a cover base that I had made with chipboard and Tyvek, and I had said that I wanted to create the journal cover from that base. However, after creating the signatures and getting a little further into the actual creation of this nature journal, I ended up coming up with a different idea, and I sort of changed gears, and instead I am using some corrugated cardboard. Now, in order to create this new base, I started out by cutting a piece from an old Amazon box. Then I folded it a few times to create a spine. I really like using old boxes for the covers of junk journals or just journals in general, because I just feel like it is a good way of recycling things that are already accessible to you and that otherwise would have gone into the garbage or the recycling. Now, I didn't actually measure this particular piece of cardboard for the cover of this book. If I was selling this journal, as I do with a lot of my junk journals, I would have measured it, but as it was something that was just for me, I didn't really care about rough edges or anything like that. Because I didn't measure it, after I had folded it to create the spine, what ended up happening was there was quite a bit of leftover cardboard along the back side. Now, I could have just cut this off to kind of even things out and make it more of a typical cover. However, instead I decided to curl it around the open side of the book to kind of create an interesting sort of closure. This is one of the things I love about mixed media and assemblage, and just things where sometimes the rules, quote unquote, aren't very heavily emphasized. I can just kind of go with the flow of things, and sometimes going with the flow is what ends up creating something that is a bit different or interesting. Now, once I had folded this piece of cardboard and curled it around so that I had a base, I just started tearing off some of the cardboard on one side in order to expose the textured inside. I didn't really have a really extreme plan when I started doing this, and I did end up exposing quite a lot of the texture, but I also did it pretty randomly, where in some areas, some of the original flat cardboard is still visible. Now, as far as the cardboard that I tore off, I did set that aside for a couple of different purposes. In my last video, I showed the process of making some handmade paper with various paper scraps, and I would absolutely use this cardboard in a future batch of paper. And I have also been adding this sort of paper scrap collection, I suppose, to a compost bin that I've started for gardening. So even when I am tearing up recycled things, I am still constantly looking for new ways to use even the scraps of the recycled things. Now, once I had removed the cardboard from this base, I had already picked out a fern card that I liked and had thought about using on the cover, and I ended up cutting down a piece of thrifted lace to set behind that card. I did end up going with a different card in the end, but the idea still remained the same. This lace is something I've used on the covers of quite a few of my junk journals in the past. It is a thicker piece of lace, and I just loved it so much that I ended up keeping it for myself instead of reselling it. So I just end up using little bits of it here and there, especially on the covers of journals. In addition to the little fern card, I also played with some of the butterfly and moth die cuts that I used in my last video in this series. I had used these butterflies and moths as embellishments on quite a few of the signatures, and so I just wanted to try to tie everything together in some way. Next up, I added some Tim Holtz word stickers to my little fern card to give myself a bit of a title for the journal. I ended up going with "It's the little things that make life big," and I also cut out the word cultivate from a separate sticker. These phrases just felt pretty fitting to me because this journal was meant to be about documenting little noticed moments in nature, and so a lot of the time I like to set a goal for myself with a journal by the words that I choose to use on either the cover or very near the beginning. After I had added the words to the little card, and I did end up using some glue as well, I ended up using my sewing machine and a straight stitch to stitch my little card to the lace that I had already pre-cut. I did cut out the little excess piece of lace in the back to use in another project. It just feels kind of silly to me to glue down a pretty large piece of lace that is not ever going to be visible again. So that's just a little tip for kind of saving supplies. I then glued one of my little butterfly die cuts to the front of this little collage cluster, and I glued another one down behind the card on the cover. I really feel like adding these little elements were the perfect little finishing touches to this journal cover. They really tied everything together in my mind, and they help pull the theme throughout the rest of the journal onto the outside as well. Once I had glued the card down, I was pretty ready to call this finished. The only thing left was to cut a piece of twine to wrap around the journal to keep it closed, and I was pretty happy with that as my completed journal cover for this nature junk journal. Now, this particular journal cover / project is pretty simple in comparison to other things I have done in this channel in the past. However, I do really love the way that this cover ended up looking, and so I thought that it would be cool to kind of show you that things don't necessarily need to be difficult or complicated in order to be aesthetically appealing. So I really hope that you all enjoyed this little video. As of right now, the journal has been completed. I've sewn my signatures in and sort of started writing in it. So I do intend to do a little flip through at some point in the future. But in the meantime, I thought I would show you the process of creating the cover. So thank you all so much for watching. You can subscribe if you want to see more videos like this or very different from this in the future. And until next time, happy creating!